Ever been sitting around bored after your 20th straight game of cursing at your teammates in Valorant and thought, was that insert thing here from my childhood really amazing? Or did I just have really shit taste? Well, I don't play Valorant because I value my sanity, but I have had this thought come up from time to time. So, amidst some of my free time, I decided to go back and view some of the shows that one time or another I fell head over heels for. Was the show a masterpiece that never got a second season? Was it garbage better left on the cutting room floor? Or was it a fine show that just isn't quite what I remembered it being? I'm Summers with Baka to Basics, and this is Nostalgia Trap, BTOOM. For those unfamiliar with it, BTOOM came out in 2012, adapted by animation giants Studio Madhouse. The story follows Ryota Sakamoto, a 22-year-old NEET in training who is one of the world's top players in a combat-style video game called BTOOM, wherein you use different types of bombs, or BIMs as the game calls them, to take out your opponents. Long story short, he and 31 other people are kidnapped and taken to a deserted island run by the video game's creators to participate in a real-life version of the game, where the only way to escape is by collecting 8 total gems from other players and calling in a helicopter to safety. This concept has a very battle royale feel to it, in that none of the players actually want to participate in the game, but they eventually have to. Someone from their everyday lives simply wished for them to be taken away, and thus this shadow organization behind the game has brought everyone here to battle it out for the enjoyment of those watching them. With the larger idea being creating a better world where the dregs of society are forced to fight for survival. As a concept, in my humble opinion, especially for the time that it was made, it was incredibly fresh, unique, and had limitless potential for creative battles. But for some comparison, we have to look at what other shows were coming out in 2012, with some of the more popular anime that come to mind being a new adaptation for JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Wild Take on Basketball with essentially superpowers and Kirk on a basket, Psychopath with all its deep psychological takes on a future society, the criminally underappreciated Space Brothers, and the next installment in the Fate series. Also, High School DxD, flame me, I like my trash. So, when comparing BTOOM to some of these shows, I can really say it's just not in the same league. Outside of the concept, which I do think is really great, and it did also have a very well received manga, but for the show itself, the animation in comparison just kind of falls a little flat. Characters move awkwardly at times, the animated explosions from bombs differentiate wildly even if it's from the same kind of bomb we saw seconds earlier, however, not the black hole bomb. That thing is consistently outright disturbing and terrifying every damn time, so kudos to them for that. But also, sometimes the pacing just feels off from episode to episode. From my experience, binge watching it didn't really help in that matter, simply just because the fluidity wasn't working for me personally. Also, for context, I watched both the English dub and subbed versions of the show, and while the sub felt pretty great, the dub was more so the version I had large issues with. Lip flaps are distracting at times, and the choice of dialogue and voice actors just doesn't do the Japanese version the same justice. On a bright note, however, it did make me want to continue the story, and the manga is some peak survival battle style seinen fiction. But since this is all about nostalgia, I have to compare this viewing to how the show made me feel when I first viewed it. And honestly, at one time, I truly thought this show was one of the best things ever created. And at the time, I could not for the life of me understand why it didn't get a chance to continue its story in anime form. But now, for one reason or another, I kind of get it. Consider this a win for nostalgia. BTOOM is a genuinely good show, and I do think someone watching it today can find some enjoyment in it. But, like myself, for those of us who watched it when it initially aired, it's perhaps better to leave this one as simply a fond memory. And that's it for this episode of Nostalgia Trap. The format for these videos is going to take some working out, but if you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing to the channel and ringing that notification bell so as to never miss a single second of Baka to Basics content. Comment down below your thoughts about BTOOM. Am I wrong and this show is still a masterpiece, or was it always just a fun cannon fodder style of show? I've been Summers with Baka to Basics, and I'll see you the next time class is in session.